Back on GreensboroSports.com, going to get into some WrestleMania activity with Bruce Mitchell, Pro Wrestling Torch. Bruce, big WrestleMania 25 coming up on Sunday. What do you see being the biggest match coming up that night? What's the feature match the fans should look at, and how do you see that match turning out?
I think the match that's the best match, or the best main event match, will be Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. I mean, you've got a match of real consequence between two guys that can really go. And will Undertaker loses 17-0, 16-0 winning streak? Will Shawn Michaels, Mr. WrestleMania, lose in a high-profile match to the Undertaker? That's got some real intrigue to it. And then you've got two guys that are really masters of the big match at WrestleMania. They really are what they say they are. And last several years, Undertaker's gotten better and smarter about how he works, and so has Shawn Michaels. And there's a contrast between the two characters. There's even what Shawn Michaels has kind of worked on SmackDown and on Raw, trying to show himself as almost a Christ-like figure against the Undertaker, the man from the dark side. So that one's real interesting. I think the one that'll end up being the one they push the hardest and maybe the match of the night and the biggest deal of the night be Triple H versus Randy Orton, because got to figure the McMahon family, Shane McMahon and Vince McMahon made their return Monday night on Raw, that they'll get involved, and we might have WrestleMania end with the McMahon family men together for the first time, running off the evils of Legacy, the evils of Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase and Randy Orton. So that'll be a lot of fun to see where that goes. This WrestleMania for the 25th anniversary just doesn't seem to have that big WrestleMania impact. They kind of, I think Vince McMahon kind of, overshot himself with the Mickey Rourke thing. I think that they thought that they would have, an Oscar-nominated actor in a celebrity match at WrestleMania, and Mickey Rourke's quite the character. He may have agreed to something before his management approved it. And once the management got involved, they just weren't going to let him.
Is he still going to be there though? He'll be there.
Yeah, from all indications, he'll be there. I would expect to see him slap Chris Jericho or get him physically involved in the match for what they call the Sports Center moment. They could be showing highlights, but it just doesn't seem to have that. It's one thing for a celebrity to sit ringside. You see that all the time, or a 57-year-old jacked up guy actually wrestling for the first time on that kind of stage. Those are two real different things with real different appeals, and I think that WWE got the least of that. But you've got Chris Jericho, who's done a great job with what really is. I mean, we're what, half a mile from the Greensboro Coliseum when we're taking this, and four guys that really are the Mid-Atlantic All-Stars, the Mid-Atlantic Parade of Champions: Ricky Steamboat, Jimmy Snuka, Roddy Piper, and of course Ric Flair at ringside. But the whole dynamic of three good guys and it's one bad guy, older legends, whatever you want to throw into that, just doesn't work.
Do all three of those legends go back to WrestleMania 1?
Let's see, Jimmy Snuka definitely. Jimmy Snuka had his personal problems at the time, so he was outside the ring for the main event of Mr. T and Mr. T and Hulk Hogan versus Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff. Ricky Steamboat was in the very first match at WrestleMania, so he was there. I guess all three did. Ric Flair, of course, was still a Jim Crockett mainstay at that point.
How much will Ric Flair be involved in Sunday? How do you see his involvement?
I see him as getting the last licks at the end of the night. I wouldn't be surprised to see a figure four. I wouldn't be surprised. Definitely see some chops or some interaction in the ring. A lot of people seem to think, and it makes sense, Jericho quickly takes care of Jimmy Snuka, some sort of cheats Roddy Piper or some sort of disqualification thing with Roddy Piper, and then Rick Steamboat, with the help of Ric Flair, beating Jericho, and then everybody celebrating in the ring. But
when do you see the Hardy Boys match showing up on the card? When do you think that one will turn up?
It's a 4-hour card, so you tell me. But
yeah.
I would figure in the second hour. And also, I think that this is one of those deals where they really made a mistake, that people don't want to see
brother versus brother,
or the Hardys fans in particular. Anyone that's down the street a little farther down the street at the Hooters after this last SmackDown show, and hanging around saw the young girls crying when they approached Jeff Hardy. Those girls, they have this romanticized thing about the Hardy Boys, and they don't want to see them split up. I think this one just really didn't have the oomph to it.
Who do you think carries that match between the two brothers? Who's got to work the hardest to carry it, you think?
you know, the nuts and bolts of it, Matt Hardy, but Jeff Hardy doing the more spectacular stuff. I expect it'll be really good. I mean, this is their chance to really, you know, do what they can do on the biggest stage of them all at WrestleMania. And you know, for guys who are, you know, standing in this parking lot, another couple miles down the road is Grimsley High School, and those two wrestled at Grimsley High School from Cameron, North Carolina, all over this area, trying to get a break. And I don't think they ever thought that they'd be wrestling each other at WrestleMania, but if you ask them, that would be a dream for them. So I think they'll really, you know, put on a show. Hopefully they won't put on a show that hurts themselves too bad.
Speaking about show, what about Big Show John Cena, and who else is in that one?
Big Show John Cena and Edge.
Yeah, and the Edge match. How about that one?
I can't believe we won't have a happy ending with John Cena getting the world title. You know, there's a chance that Triple H could lose, but I just can't. You know, small chance, but I just can't see John Cena not winning that kind of soap opera stuff that really doesn't get the juices flowing as far as a big competitive match. But it'll be all right. I mean, Edge is good, and John Cena's good on the big stage, and Big Show knows what to do. So that should be an entertaining match.
See anybody having a breakout night? Any young wrestlers that might get a chance to move up some in the WrestleMania stage in that ring?
You know, it's a really interesting question because Jack Swagger would be the one that everyone's been pointing to. He's got the amateur credentials. He's shown something on ECW, but he had a match on pay-per-view not too long ago against Finlay. Finlay, you know, the veteran. The match wasn't very good, and since then we haven't heard that Jack Swagger's going to be at WrestleMania. The Money in the Bank match has a bunch of people from ECW on it, but it doesn't have their champion. So I don't know if Jack Swagger gets thrown into a match. I mean, he may or may not, but he's not advertised. He's not featured that we know about. None of the Money in the Bank people. You got CM Punk back in the same exact slot he was last year. I'd say that's.
See, he hasn't moved up really any. If you look at it like that.
He moved up and then he moved back. I mean, you know, I don't know, but nobody in Money in the Bank. Shelton Benjamin, he's 5 years ago. You know, Kofi Kingston's not. You don't know that they have the faith in him yet.
What about Christian?
Christian, you know, it's not a secret that Vince McMahon is not all that sold on Christian after all these years, and maybe he wins it, maybe he doesn't. Maybe this is his chance. He's not the worst candidate to do it, but he's a veteran. I don't see him breaking through or doing something much more than that. Maybe he wins it, and maybe they send him to SmackDown to give Edge an edge. But I don't know. I actually see him not doing much at all in the match and just continuing on the road he's been on.
Some divas will be back, though. That's something to look for. Victoria and understand Tori Wilson, maybe even Tammy Sitch will be back.
Tammy Sitch will be back. Jackie Gata.
That's Charlie Haas's wife, right?
Charlie Haas's wife. But it's real interesting that some of the ones that they offered, Trish Stratus and Wendy Richter from the first WrestleMania, they didn't want to do it. There's you know I can understand that because it's tough being as tough as it can be being a male professional wrestler, and you know as tough as it is on the asteroid tables. I mean, the women really face, you know, they have to be in more than shape, and you know if you've aged a little bit and you're out there in front of a crowd that can be very unforgiving, that can be a rough thing. Maybe it's not worth the money. Maybe it's not worth even hanging out on that start and getting the star treatment for a weekend.
So the match you're pinpointing, the match of the night, still looking at Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker, and you feel like The Undertaker will make it, 17-0 after this one?
Well, you never asked me that. How do you know I feel that way?
That's what you felt last year.
Well, I do feel that way. I always feel that way. I mean, unless there's a real point to him losing that streak, and I haven't seen it yet, I think he takes that streak with him as part of his legendary status, because that gives him something later on that they can go, you know, you can pair this guy to The Undertaker, you can have this streak, and you can do that. But to just have him lose out of that, Shawn Michaels doesn't need the win. He is Mr. WrestleMania one way or the other, and he can be the underdog who keeps coming back, who keeps almost getting it, puts on the great performance, and loses in the end, and he'll be fine.